Go ahead and create a brand new instance of Azure Active Directory. Straightforward enough. Go to my marketplace and we're just going to create a new Azure Active Directory. So new instance. Now each instance requires essentially an administrator account, requires a subscription. Once you have those things in place, you can essentially go ahead and get started and really do whatever you want with it. So we'll look at that and we'll look at some of the kind of next steps you might go through. So name of the organization. This will be Contoso Gold. And a domain name. Now it's initially an onmicrosoft.com domain name. One of the things you can do later on is change it to be what's sometimes referred to as your vanity domain name or a domain name that you actually own. Such as in my case, I own Contoso Blue, so I've set up that instance of Active Directory using contosoblue.com. Initially, it's going to be your domain name on Microsoft.com, so we'll click Create on that. And it's going to go ahead and create the directory, and that process takes a really short period of time. So we'll let that churn away, and we'll get a notification here when it's ready. So that directory is created. So now we can actually change to that directory by just going up here, clicking where our name is. We'll click Contoso Gold, and now we're in that new Contoso Gold instance of Active Directory. Now my user account that I used to create it is the one that right now is the overall global admin and the subscription admin. We take a look around. Well, first we'll look at Azure Active Directory. We'll see there's no user accounts in this directory, including no administrator account. There's only my account that I use to create it. So we're going to want to create an administrator account. And then secondly, by going to more services, and then I click subscriptions, I'll just put a little star next to it. So it's always there. Click subscriptions. We'll see there's no subscriptions, so we can't actually create any objects. So I've got to do really two things to kind of get started on this. The first is I want to add a subscription. And so adding the subscription is going to let me create the different types of objects that are available. And so I'll go through this straightforward create subscription process. I'm not going to complete this because I don't actually want to add a new subscription. But again, just your standard Azure subscription sign-up process. We'll do a pay-as-you-go or whatever method suits you. But then I also want to add an administrator user account. And so to do that, I'm simply going to come in here, users and groups. And I'm going to click users and just go through the process of adding a new admin user account. And I want to make that user a global admin, so they have full control over everything. And then the final thing I'd want to do is transfer the subscription to that global administrator account, so they then have control over the subscription as well. So at that stage, I've now created the directory. I put a subscription. I handed it off to the administrator, so they can now effectively manage that directory. A few other things you might want to do once you create the new directory: branding, which will allow you to put your own logo, colors, etc., to just kind of personalize it. And then the other thing that you might want to do is also adjust the naming on the directory. So we've got this notion of a custom domain name. So let's say that I actually own contosogold.com, and this is the name that I want employees to use when they log on, that I want resources to be available under. I can add a custom domain such as contosogold.com. And then I would want to verify that domain name. Now you can look in the demo on password synchronization. You can see where I actually do this. But the process of then verifying the domain simply means that I have to go to the DNS for contosogold.com, which I only have access to if I own it, and I simply add a new DNS record. Azure verifies that it can query that DNS record, thereby it now knows that I own that domain, and contosogold.com can become the primary domain name for this instance of Azure Active Directory. And then finally, when I'm done, I no longer want this instance, I can delete it. And to delete it, there's a number of criteria that have to be met. There have to be no users, app registrations, applications, subscriptions, really anything that's associated with that directory. Deleting an instance of Azure Active Directory can sometimes be difficult because sometimes it can be difficult to remove all the objects, especially for an instance that's been around for a long time. But it does go through this process of verifying it has no dependencies. Once it has no dependencies, you simply come in, click delete, and it will remove that directory and everything to do with it. It'll be as if it never existed. So there you go. That's how you create a custom instance or a new instance of Azure Active Directory.